Okay, good morning to you all, and thank you so much for attending this National Stakeholder Forum today, and welcome you all. I think overall we've had about 117 registrants for today's forum, so hopefully we'll be joined by a few others as we get going this morning. I'd like to, I'm acting chair of this meeting today in lieu of Ricky.archer. And again, welcome you all. I'd just like to do a welcome to country, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. And we pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. The National Feral Pig Action Plan acknowledges and respects the cultural, spiritual and educational practices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. And if you'd like to let us know the traditional lands on which you are joining us today, please let us know from the chat box. I'm joining from Wurundjeri country in Melbourne. This forum is being recorded, and all recordings will be posted onto the Feral Pigs website over coming days, as we've done for previous forums. So we are using the webinar format today, so we can't take oral questions. If attendees have questions, please lodge these at any time during the presentations using the chat function. We've allocated lots of time today for questions. 2 opportunities for questions are being scheduled. First, one after the presentation from Cameron Wilson, and the second following Jack Pascoe's. Rather than Jack doing question and answers today, we'll be joined by Tim Wilson instead from the Conservation Ecology Centre in Victoria. If we run out of time, any questions are not answered will be provided to the respective presenter, and answers will be posted on the Stakeholder Forums page on the Feral Pigs website. We've also set up a short 6-question survey at the end of the webinar. It'd be great if you could please take a moment to, when you're leaving the forum, to answer those, because your contributions and your feedback on this is really helpful in terms of making sure that we're meeting needs in these forums, and that to ensure, of course, they're topical and relevant. I'd like to acknowledge the registrants from the Implementation Committee, a Scientific Advisory Panel and Indigenous Advisory Panel joining us today. So the focus of today's forum is on the importance of collecting data to improve the effectiveness of feral pig control programs. And of course, data can improve how programs are designed, resources are used. It can also help to better understand feral pig movement in the landscape, where they are and why they move where they do, and also evaluate management outcomes. So our guest speakers today are Cameron Wilson from Queensland Department of Agriculture and Fisheries, and Dr. Jack Pascoe, Conservation and Research Manager from the Conservation Ecology Centre from the Cape Otway in Victoria. And he's leading the Feral Pig and Deer program as part of the Wild Otways initiative. So Cameron and Jack will discuss how data is being used to improve management decisions, to reduce feral pig impacts to different assets, including for EPBC listed threatened species. So I welcome you all once again to this forum today. So now I'm just going to give a brief update of activities and priorities since we've had our last forum back in August. So at our last forum in August, next slide please, Narelle. So our last forum in August, the priorities that we were focusing on between July this year and June next year were outlined, and this slide provides a summary of those. So firstly, our stakeholder engagement activities and actions are critical to enabling the National Feral Pig Action Plan to be implemented. And as I've already mentioned previously, it's all about partnerships and relationships with different people, because that's really what we're trying, of course, to work to ensure that we have those partnerships and relationships as effective as possible, so that we can address the problems of feral pigs. And this includes enhancing relationships between public and private land managers, gaining awareness of the plan by land managers, and building and strengthening partnerships between the many management groups and stakeholders involved in feral pig management is a key focus. And over the past few months, I've met face-to-face with stakeholders in Kangaroo Island, Whitsunday region of Queensland, in the Midwest and Southwest of WA, and also we've held a successful meeting of the demonstration site facilitators up in Cairns, which I mentioned at our last stakeholder forum. I'm also looking forward to meeting with Indigenous ranger groups involved in the Western Cape Turtle Threat Abatement Alliance next week in Weaver, as well as other stakeholders, and learning about the outcomes of their work to protect threatened turtle species from feral pig predation. Our information hub is being updated, and please get in touch with Narelle or I to provide new details of your programs, who's involved, how it's being done, and their outcomes. So we'd like this to continue to be a useful resource for you. And from the monitoring of the website, it does attract a lot of visits. So the more that we can keep that up to date, the better, to help with spreading the word about all the great work being done around the country. From your feedback being provided through these stakeholder forums, they are continuing to hit the mark to provide useful and relevant feral pig management and monitoring information to you, including new technologies and approaches being used. Today's forum is our 8th. And these events are one way that we're sharing management tips and ideas with a broad and diverse group of people to help local programs become more effective in reducing feral pig impacts and their populations. So if you've got any ideas for future forums or ways that we can improve on these ones, please let us know and reach out. Many of the presentations in these forums have focused on aspects of monitoring and the use of technologies, including field cameras, GPS collars, thermal cameras and scopes, thermal assisted aerial culling, drones and environmental DNA to inform management strategies, understand population movement and numbers, as well as optimise and assess outcomes being achieved. Today's presentations will discuss learnings from the use of these tools and how they're being used to improve on-ground feral pig management. So monitoring remains a high priority to deliver through the plan. And as previously mentioned, the plan is linked in with work being undertaken through Turn Australia, funded by the Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water, to develop a suite of standardised monitoring protocols for vertebrate pest species, including feral pigs. And once these are drafted, the plan scientific advisory panel will be convened to provide technical review and assist with ensuring that these methodologies can be easily adopted by land managers and in a timely way. Also, a new initiative, the Australian Bureau of Agriculture and Resource Economics and Sciences, or ABARES, have commenced a new project to create a national picture of environmental impacts of established vertebrate pests and weeds to understand the extent and magnitude of the environmental impacts caused by nationally significant established pests and weeds, as well as to understand how these change over time. And this project is in addition to the current projects also funded by the Commonwealth to update feral pig population, national distribution density maps, and estimate the economic, environmental and social costs of their impacts. And these projects are in progress. We still need to do more to develop methodologies to better measure impacts and costs of feral pigs on different agricultural enterprises, but it's not easy. Thirdly, we are continuing to progress with preparing and releasing a prospectus to attract longer-term investment into local feral pig management programs that protect assets of interest from feral pigs. And we are planning on releasing this very soon. And this is all around what we can do about driving strategic investment opportunities. Longevity in program resourcing is a major priority for the implementation committee. But again, it's not an easy one to crack, so we'll have a go. The next area here is about helping to shift feral pig management from being reactive to proactive, and we're doing what we can to promote the development and use of best practice management plans by land managers. Regional coordination was included as an action in the plan. However, at the moment, there aren't funds that have been allocated for this, so we are raising the value that regional coordination of feral pig management at a catchment scale would provide with stakeholders. And the purpose of this, of course, is to bring people together and support the plan's implementation at a wider regional level. This approach has worked very well with wild dogs. And finally, biosecurity compliance of land managers to fulfil their legislative obligations to remove feral pigs on their land, as well as dealing with illegal trespass and translocation of feral pigs, are issues that will be progressing with state jurisdictions. Next slide, please. I just thought I'd take a moment to discuss the current situation with feral pigs, which will not be news to many of you. So in many areas across Australia, the La Nina conditions are favouring feral pigs. Their populations have exploded. With plentiful water and feed available, they're not congregating around permanent water at typical times when weather patterns are more normal. This means that they are dispersed in the environment and could also be in smaller groups. Decisions of which combinations of best practice management methods should be used and when is also being hampered by difficulties in accessing areas by vehicle. All of this means that existing best practice management methods need to be used and employed in different ways. And I'd be very interested to hear from anyone who's changed how and when they are doing their control programs, so we can share this information with you all. Feral pig management is hard, expensive and challenging in time, in labour and resources, as well as all the losses that they cause. So in addition, the heightened biosecurity and disease transmission risks that feral pigs present also need to be managed. In relation to this, I'm just going to touch very briefly on Japanese encephalitis. So with floodwaters out there, they're providing an ideal environment for mosquito breeding and waterbird populations. So health advice is available on precautions that can be taken to protect yourself and avoid being bitten by mosquitoes. And you can find that from state and territory health department websites. Wherever possible, please consider JEV vaccination if you're working outdoors. There are resources available on JEV, as I mentioned, on the industry and government websites. But please get in touch with us if we can assist with directing you to relevant sources of information. Just to alert you too, the first case of JEV in a domestic piggery has been identified in the Murray Local Land Services region in New South Wales for 2022-23. As another update, no cases of Japanese encephalitis have been reported in WA, in domestic pigs, feral pigs or in humans, and JEV surveillance in feral pigs in Western Australia is being managed through the WA Department of Health. So there is a program going on over there for that. And as we all know too, Japanese encephalitis virus was detected in feral pigs in Northern Territory and in Queensland earlier this year. There are a number of new initiatives that have recently been announced by both Queensland and in New South Wales. And as advised in our August newsletter, the Queensland Government has allocated more than $20 million to strengthen Queensland biosecurity defences. And this includes the recruitment and training of 10 new biosecurity officers and also boosting their coordinated feral pig control capability. So we're awaiting more details on this. The Queensland Feral Pest Initiative Round 7 is also just closed, and the objective of this program included building landholder and land manager capability and building knowledge, engagement and participation of land managers and others in the community at that regional level. So more recently, grants to support regional collaboration and to build capacity and enhance biosecurity capacity by local councils across far north Queensland were announced through the Enhancing Local Government Biosecurity Capacity program. Funding for on-ground control activities, emergency animal disease preparedness and increased control of feral pigs and deer has been announced by the New South Wales Government. And again, more details on this will be communicated as they come to hand. Next slide, please. So with this, it's important, this is really emphasising here that partnerships are critical to success and some of the key elements here that are important to consider in feral pig management programs. So it's important that groups have local plans in place to enable proactive management of feral pigs and to align the expectations of participants. And the plan could outline when and where best practice management will be done, who's involved and what methods will be used, and importantly too, to get sign-off from parties involved. By doing this, of course, and getting together, different land managers can share their ideas, resources, knowledge and experience at that local level. By bringing people together and different types of people together, management activities can be coordinated over large areas and across tenures. And the demonstration sites that we now have got going and other programs are providing some great examples of these and how this can be done. So please have a look at any of the feature articles on our website for these case studies, as well as the demonstration site webpage and web pages. As we know, there's no easy solution to feral pig management, and land managers do have a range of methods that are available for feral pig control. One of the key objectives of the National Feral Pig Management Coordinator Program is to drive the adoption of integrated best practice management. So this remains a key point that we're trying to work through to encourage the adoption of this approach with land managers. So many training workshops are being held locally, convened through state and local agencies, land care, natural resource management agencies, industry, recognised biosecurity groups and state farming organisations. And the purpose of these is for land managers to learn more about how to humanely and effectively apply best practice management for feral pigs. And please reach out to us at any time so we can assist with supporting these if you're organising any workshops. And of course, when they are used strategically in combination, good results can be achieved, but it does take patience, time and resourcing. And of course, I've already mentioned around monitoring in relation to the point on measuring outcomes consistently over time. Monitoring isn't easy, and doing it can cost money and divert resources away from applying control measures, but it is really important. And both Jack and Cameron will talk about that shortly. There is a lot of work going on in this space about how technology can be used to help with providing reliable information and data to help inform this. And I'm sure Cameron will also cover the issues around needing to get at least 70% of the population at any time, but the challenges of course is knowing how many are out there in the first place. So media over the past couple of months has also picked up on programs where syndicates or local groups of land managers have formed to act locally across different land tenures to control feral pigs and their impacts. And snapshots of some of these are on this slide. And this is what the National Feral Pig Action Plan is advocating: a coordinated, collaborative and uniform response to feral pig management. So the Whitsunday Region Management Program, one of the demonstration sites, has a network of 16 syndicates or feral animal management areas across the Whitsunday, Isaac, Burdekin, Mackay and Charters Towers regional council areas. Each of these is being led by champion landholders. And it means that coordinated and collaborative actions are being applied across a larger area at a regional scale. And Scott Hardy at our last forum presented on this program in August, and more information is also available about this on the website. The article on this slide, the article on the top right-hand side of the slide describes the work being done in the South Burnett region of Queensland, and one on the bottom is around the work being done in the Gympie region. And these programs, where the groups of land managers are getting together to form syndicates and apply best practice management for feral pigs. This is an initiative that's being supported through funding from round 6 of the Queensland Feral Pests Initiative. And there are many other groups, of course, operating in this way. And it'd be great if a connected network of coordinated programs existed across the landscape with all the land managers involved. And this is what I'd love to see happen through the plan's implementation. In the Innisfail region, a group of cane growers work together to conduct coordinated baiting. And other approaches are needed here to achieve a substantial knockdown in the feral pig population in the area, because they utilise scrub, mangroves and other neighbouring properties to harbour in. But it's really difficult to get people involved in a program if they can't see that their time and effort is making a difference and are effectively reducing impacts being experienced. And this is a big issue that we need to continue to address and come up with some solutions for. Ideally, a control program, ideally a coordinated program supported by a facilitator would be great. And that would be to help with controlling feral pigs on this landscape scale, nil tenure basis. How we achieve this is a work in progress once more. Next slide, please. So this final slide just provides some key elements on what's needed for a successful long-term management program. So we need to have strong partnerships between all land managers and other stakeholders. Having a regional and or local coordination is also really important because it helps to bring people together and keep people engaged. A clear understanding of what success looks like, having measurable goals, being able to monitor impacts, and having defined endpoints in place is really important. And of course, with this, it really does require the collection, analysis and reporting of data. Knowing what data to collect remains a challenge, but it's also knowing, of course, what the problem is and then collecting data to help with addressing the change over time against the problem that we're trying to address through the feral pig management program. We need to have database decision-making in place and continuous improvement through adaptive management. But of course, sustained activities, funding and people being involved in feral pig management is key. Next slide, please, Narelle. So I look forward to hearing from both Cameron Wilson and Jack Pascoe, who will discuss the outcomes of their work to address the theme of this forum, the power of data to enhance feral pig management strategies. Thanks so much for your attention. I look forward to continuing to work with you all to support your efforts to reduce the feral pig populations and their impacts through coordinated, collaborative and humane best practice management. Thank you.